everyone, it's Lisa. Welcome back to my channel. Before we get started with this card tutorial, go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn your bell notifications on so that you can be notified every time I release a new video. I am going to be using this new die from the Stamps of Life. It's the Mismatched Square Slimline Drop-In, and I do not believe that it comes with the outside rectangle die to cut it out. So if that's the case, you will need to get an outside rectangle die either from the Slimline card die set or the rounded corner die set to use with this drop-in. So in order to cut this die out, you have to use that die inside of the rounded rectangle or the straight-edged rectangle Slimline card die as well. And I'm also going to be bringing in the Merry Christmas 2020 die set that you see here. Now, this die set is currently sold out at the Stamps of Life, but at the time that I made this video, they had plenty in stock. So if you have this die set, that's what I'm going to be using. If you don't, you can just bring in another Christmas die set that you might have. So when you die cut that drop-in, make sure you have your washi tape around your dies to keep them in place, and then it cuts out those 3 squares that you saw there, and then just be careful removing your washi tape. It's also going to cut out the actual background piece that you will use on your Slimline card front. And it's really important that you use that washi tape to keep those pieces together, those dies together, because you want to make sure that your squares are completely straight when they come out of that die cut machine. You also have these 3 layering dies, so if you wanted to die cut out of different color cardstock and just put layering pieces here, you can, or if you wanted to put some pattern paper there, you can. Now here I just want to show you what happens when you don't use these 2 dies together. So if you don't use the outside rectangle die, it's just going to cut this drop-in into your cardstock. That's why you have to make sure that you layer the outside rectangle die around the drop-in so that you can get an actual die cut to use on your card. I am using the rounded corner Slimline die set from the Stamps of Life, and that will cut out my card base. So this is the die that I'm using to cut out my Slimline card base, and I'm cutting it out of some strawberry cardstock. Notice that it puts the score line already in there, and it gives you the rounded corners, and all you have to do is fold at that score line and you have your card base. And if you didn't have the rounded corner one, but you had the other Slimline card die set, that would work as well. And that mismatched square die will layer right on top. Now I did stamp out my elves. That's the Elves to Stamp set, and I thought it would be cute to have these elves peeking out of 2 of the windows. So I'm using the 2 elves, and I went ahead and stamped them out, and I'm going to do some coloring. I am going to be using my Arteza Everblend markers to color these images up. These are alcohol-based markers and an alternative to Copic markers. I recently did a review of the Arteza Everblend markers on my YouTube channel, and I will link that in the description box below so you can go take a look at that. So I'm going to show you the coloring, and if you don't want to watch the coloring, you can fast forward until you get to the rest of the card tutorial. So let's get started.
Alright, so for my reds, I am going to be going with the wine red, which is A415, tomato red, which is A414, and the rose red, which is A410. So again, when you're choosing your colors, you want to make sure that you have 3 colors. Well, you don't always have to have 3 colors, but I'm going to be using a 3-color blend. So when you are doing a 3-color blend, you want to make sure that you have a dark, a mid-tone, as well as a light. So I'm just going to start out with my darkest color and just come over here on the side of the hat and just add a little bit of dark on both sides. And then I'm going to come in with my mid-tone, which is my tomato red. And I'm just going to go in a little bit of circular motion right where that dark and the white paper intersect. So I'm just trying to blend out that line and then extend it a little bit further into the white area. And we'll do the same here, so just go in a little bit of a circular motion around the line where the dark ended and then extend more into the white to bring that medium shade out. Now I'm going to come in with my light, which is my 410, which is my rose red, and I'm going to do the same exact thing by just coloring a little bit over top of where the medium left off and then extending out. And I'm just going to fill in those gaps. I'm going to come back over this one more time just because I want to add some more contrast to these colors. So I'm coming in with my dark. I'm going to do the same thing. Just come over the edges of the hat. Do the same thing here. Come in with my mid-tone. Again, I'm just coloring in circles, going in a circular motion where that dark left off. And bringing that a little bit more towards the center. And then taking my light and coming a little bit where the medium left off and filling in through the center. I think those reds in these artisan markers are pretty nice. That turned out really good. So I'm gonna do the same thing with the little guy. He's gonna get the same color hat. So I'm going to speed this up as I color his hat. So I'm thinking for this little guy's hat, I'm going to go ahead and extend some of this shadow up here at the top. I think that might look better by filling that part in. Sometimes when I do my coloring, I take a second look when I'm done and I'm like, okay, that needs to be changed. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to change that and then just blend this out. And I think that adds a much better contrast. All right, so both of our hats are done. We are going to move on to our greens. And I'm going to be using olive green A942 and lime green A5948. And I'm going to be putting the greens on the stripes in their hats. So I'm going to start with my dark. And because I only have two colors, because if you saw my Arteza review on these markers, this particular green color, which I like a lot because I like it for like the fall colors, even like this card, it's gonna be nice because it's gonna match that kiwi cardstock. Anyway, in this particular color combination, there's only these two markers. There are a bunch of greens available, but they're different shades of greens, and I wasn't crazy about using those other shades for the color that I wanted. They did not match the cardstock, so that's why I chose this particular green combination. So I'm only using a two-color blend, which is perfectly fine, but I may have to work it a little bit more because those colors, you know, there's such a span in those colors, and it's actually turning out better than I thought. I mean, look at that. That almost looks like a seamless blend. You can see the dark there on the sides, and then I just circled over it and created that, got rid of that harsh line. I think that turned out really good, actually. So I am pretty impressed with that. All right, so let's go over to this little guy's hat. We're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna bring in some of the darks. Now, if you wanted to, I mean, my goodness, you can color each one of these little rectangles, but I do not have the patience for that. So we're just coloring it. It's very similar to what we did with this other one. All right, so I know a little bit of this shirt is going to show, so I am just going to bring in my dark color right under the neckline, and only a tiny bit's gonna show, so not much. And I'm not certain how much of this button is gonna show, so I'm just gonna fill that in as well. I just filled that in with the dark. These are looking pretty good. I'm really liking these Arteza markers. Again, I will link the review that I did on the Arteza markers down below if you want to go take a look at that. Okay, so I am going to be using for the face the apricot, the pale peach, and the peach. Now, I think I'm gonna start out by just using the peach and the pale peach, which are my mid-tone and my light. I don't know if I'm gonna use the apricot or not. I might come back in at the end and add it, depending on how I like these two colors. So I don't wanna add it right yet and then end up not liking it, because then I'd have to redo the whole thing over again. And I don't wanna redo it. It takes too much work to redo. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my pale peach. I'm actually gonna take my chisel tip, and I am going to come over his entire face. I'm just laying some color down. I can also do that for the ears. So we're gonna go in with our mid-tone color. This is the peach. I'm gonna use my bullet nib, and I am just going to come underneath the hairline to cast a shadow there. And I'm gonna bring this down, kind of pretty much go around his entire face. And I'm gonna extend that a little bit. And then I'm gonna come in with my light again, which is my pale peach. And I'm just going to blend those out. So again, just go in a circular motion, just along where that medium color left off. And I think that this might be the only colors that I use. I don't think I'm gonna bring in that darker color. I think it might be too dark. But if you wanted to add more contrast, you definitely could bring in that other color. I'm gonna go ahead and add a watermelon pink to his cheeks. So I'm just going in a circle just to give him some rosy cheeks there. And then I'm gonna come in with my pale peach and just kind of blend the edges of that in. So I'm just blending that in, so it doesn't have such harsh lines around the edges. Okay, I think I need to come a little closer up here to his nose too. All right, let me go ahead and color his nose up in the pale peach, but I think I'm gonna come in with a darker, I think I might come in with the peach color, and we'll outline his nose, or actually just the top of his nose, I'm thinking. Let's see what that looks like. And then just extend that down. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so I did not end up using the apricot. I only ended up using the peach and the pale peach. So I'm just gonna come in and just do his ears. I'm just gonna outline a little bit of the ear. And then come in with the pale peach and just blend that out. All right, let's do this little guy since I have these skin colors already out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same exact thing, and I'm going to speed this up just a tiny bit. And you can watch the coloring since it is all the same as before. All right, I do want to point out, because I was using the chisel tip, I did get some of the marker extending into the white on the cardstock. So I'm going to see if I can take this blender pen and just go over that, just to kind of wash that color away. And with the lighter colors, a lot of times it will work, like it will just erase that marker. But sometimes if you had a darker color, like let's say that the red extended beyond that image into the cardstock, it would be harder to get rid of the red because it's so saturated with ink. But it worked for the lighter color, so I'm really pleased with that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do this part. I'm just gonna color it in with the light green. This is the lime green. And I am gonna put a little bit of shading in here, so I am gonna then take my olive green and just put a little bit of shading at the top And then I'm going to come in with my light and just blend that out. Okay, the only other thing I have to do on these elves is the hair. So let me see what colors I'm going to use for the hair. All right, I think I'm going to go with the jasmine yellow and the yellow ochre. And the jasmine yellow is my lightest color. I'm just going to color the whole thing up with the jasmine yellow. Then I'm going to come in with my dark. And I'm just going to put a little bit of dark there at the top, as well as around these curls here at the bottom. Okay, and I'm actually going to come in with the point of my brush, and I'm just going to do some flicking motions like this, just to bring some of that color down. And I'm going to do that on the top and on the bottom. Just put some flicks in there, and then come in with my light and then just flick right over top to blend those colors out. Now this little guy doesn't have much hair showing, so we probably don't need to do too much to this, but I am going to add a little bit of dark to the top and then a little bit to the bottom. I don't even know if you need to add any flicks in there, but the flicks kind of just give it some texture because it is hair. All right, I think those turned out pretty good. So I'm just going to take my dies and I'm going to die cut those, and I'll be right back.
So these elves are going to be positioned inside of the squares just as you see me putting them. I want to make sure that their ears are showing because those ears are just the cutest things on those stamps. So I'm positioning those inside the squares. That middle square is not going to have anything there. It's actually just going to be covered up with my Merry Christmas word die. And I'm just placing my elf where I want it, and then I'm going to flip that panel over and just tape the back of him to that green cardstock layer, just to make sure he stays in place. So just taping him up, and I'm going to do that for both of those dies. So again, placing him inside the square, flipping that panel over, and just taping it down to make sure that it stays in place. Next, I'm going to put glue on the back side of some of the pieces on the hat that I know are going to be adhered to the green cardstock. So again, the glue is not going to be all over the whole thing right now. It's just going to be adhered to the top part of the hat where that pom-pom is, maybe to some of the ears, and that's about it, just to making sure that it stays connected to that outside piece of that cardstock. I want to add some pattern paper behind these squares, so it's going to be this snowflake pattern paper that you see here. This is from the Woohoo pattern paper pad, and you technically could put these kiwi pieces right back in place, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and add the pattern paper, so I'm just going to cut it to size. I don't even need to die cut it out, just kind of cut it to size and then just tape it to the back panel to cover up that window. And it's going to look like the elves are looking through the window and there are snowflakes behind. I thought that would be really cute. So I'm just going to tape that pattern paper down to the back side of that panel of my Slimline card, and I'm going to do that for both of those windows. So for the word die, I'm using the Merry Christmas 2020. It was a limited edition word die from the Stamps of Life. And at the time that I made this card, it was available, but at the time of filming this and releasing this on YouTube, it has been sold out, unfortunately. I know some of you purchased this die, so if you did purchase this die, it fits perfectly in the middle of these two elves. And this die, you can actually use the 2020 or choose not to. And if you chose not to, there is a heart die that you can substitute for the 2020. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that panel over, peel back all of that double-sided adhesive tape, add glue to the rest of that panel, and add that to my Slimline card base. That Slimline card base was cut with a Slimline card rounded corner die set from the Stamps of Life. And I'm going to just add some glue to the back of the sentiment and add it right over that bottom square. Now, if you don't have this Merry Christmas 2020, if you did not purchase it, you can use any Christmas sentiment that you may have that fits inside of this. Next, I took some gold ribbon from my stash, just tied it in a bow, and I put a bow underneath each one of those elves, just adding some hot glue to the back center of that ribbon and attaching it to the front of that card. So that completes this card. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and be sure to subscribe for more card making tutorials. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.